All right, so 3, 2, 1. All right, hello everyone. This is Chelle. I always do this backwards. It's great. This is Chelle. She's my friend, and she's going to be here for the third self-care convo to talk about self-care. What's important to her about that, and like what she does around that, and what that kind of looks like for her. So, my message. Without further ado, this is Chelle. If
Hello.
Hello. If you wouldn't mind, like, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm a nutritionist and health coach, so I like to help people learn how to tune into their intuition and take good care of themselves.
Definitely. Well, so it sounds like self-care is very important to you.
For sure.
Definitely. And it sounds like nutrition is a very big part of that self-care.
Yeah, for me, that's the thing that I notice the most. Although all of the aspects of self care are important, but because that's what I focus on, that's what seems to pop up for me as the most helpful.
Definitely. And that's what's so cool. I love how, I don't know, how these talks kind of like how we all practice, like something so important to us, but the root, it's a piece of the puzzle. I was kind of curious, just kind of like going into the framework behind. So, and since you brought up nutrition, also, what kind of things do you do, or what comes to mind when you think about self care around your physiology, your body, the physical space?
Well, food and nutrition are the main two that pop up right away.
Definitely.
Sorry, not food, nutrition and exercise rather.
Okay.
So
Okay.
moving your body and what you put into it.
Okay. And then why are those important?
I think that they're kind of the cornerstone that makes up who you are. I mean, you could really make that argument for anything, but you are what you eat is something that I often think about, or you are what you eat eats. um, in another step. So I give a lot of attention to eating. I eat animal products, so I eat a lot of animal products from animals that are also cared for very well, because I think all of that matters. And then moving your body, of course, just helps everything work better. It's what our bodies are built to move, and when we stop moving, we start digressing, I guess would be a good way to put it.
Yeah, it's kind of like they use it or lose it. The brain's
Yeah,
very adaptive, so it'll do what you're doing. It'll get better at that.
right. Inertia is so important, and inertia can mean stopping. It's hard to put something in motion that's not in motion. It takes a lot to overcome that. But once you are in a flow and moving, it's easier to stay moving.
Yeah, definitely. I just wanted to talk because I don't know if you're aware, we have a toolkit for roadblocks to help shift that momentum, that inertia this way. So I always like to just tie that in so people know where you can use those techniques to shift that inertia, to where you want to go instead. I'm
Awesome.
kind of curious when you're practicing. So when you are exercising, right? I guess practicing proper nutrition, when you're getting all those things, and when it's like sourced correctly, like you're saying, like where the animals are taken care of. When you're doing all of that, what does that do for you?
Just makes me feel good. I guess I don't because it's kind of almost second nature for me, at least the food part. I don't notice that much when I do it. I notice when I don't do it.
And that's a good distinction. I'm curious. So when you're noticing when you're not doing it, right? You're noticing those changes. What does the nutrition give you that you notice you're lacking when you're not doing it, or the exercise?
Uh, Energy and just state of mind. Um, I guess I just feel more sluggish in general. My digestion gets more sluggish. Like if I go visit my family for a week or something and eat different than I'm used to, um, when I come back, I'm just absolutely ready to go back to what I'm normally eating because I just feel, I guess, sluggish would be the best word to describe it.
Okay. And then you kind of were mentioning that sluggishness kind of carries over into like the mental realm then.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And then how does that affect you when you're kind of sluggish in kind of like those things that you want to do or would rather be doing?
It just makes me sorry. We're gonna have to. The video cut out, and so I was fixing it and totally. missed what you said. Say it again, please.
When you're feeling that sluggishness and then you're doing those things, just whatever it is in life, what are you noticing? How do you notice that sluggishness gets in the way, I suppose?
It's just harder to motivate myself to do things. I'd say
Okay.
that's the biggest one.
Okay. And then so when you're exercising and when in eating right, so is it more about the nutrition really? Like you were saying, when you're eating right more so, that's when you're not feeling so sluggish.
Yeah, definitely eating right gives me the energy and mental clarity to motivate me to do all the other things. So, and luckily, that's the piece that comes naturally to me. But exercise is all, maybe not even exercise, but movement. We'll just say is also super important.
Sure.
And I've noticed during this time of less activity because of the cold, because of restrictions on where you can go, and all that. It's definitely slowed down my forward momentum, and it's been harder to get back on track. So the nutrition piece generally is enough to make me feel energized to go about my daily life. But some of these things that are somewhat stopping me, not saying that they're excuses, but they definitely have hindered my regular amount of movement. That can definitely slow me down too, and so they work hand in hand.
Okay, definitely. And then I think that I think at the root, really, nutrition is very overlooked because we kind of think, I guess like just in the media, we know about like kind of movement and stuff and how like that gets us more energized because we're using energy and stuff. But I feel like nutrition really gets overlooked as far as mood and like you're saying that kind of that
Mood,
motivation.
energy, and mental clarity. Yeah,
Yeah.
metabolic type is kind of my main interest in nutrition, and I find when people eat in a way that is in harmony with their metabolism, that's when they have the best energy, mood, and mental clarity, and all of them are important. It's not just energy that food gives you; it definitely gives you clarity of mind.
Yeah, and I just kind of want to echo that. I'm always so shocked the difference when I'm getting the proper nutrients and vitamins and like my system, has all that, so that's it's not feeling sluggish, right? Like I'm over here,
Right.
and then it's just easier to do those other things. So I just love that nutrition that this came up because it does get overlooked, and it is such a kind of simple passive. It's not passive, but you just kind of like make sure you're taking and eating what you need and then that just helps you do the other things like the activity, whatever you need to do, if that makes sense.
And then also making sure that you're not taking in stuff that's hindering your goals.
Yeah.
So perhaps too much sugar or too many carbohydrates that for your particular body it can definitely contribute to brain fog and spikes in your energy followed by crashes and blood sugar ups and downs, and it can throw people into um, harder to get out of mental state. There's an awesome book called Nutrition in Your Mind that gives examples of, for example, there's a woman in the book who, when she is eating her normal diet at home, she's fine. When she goes on vacation, she often goes to a tropical location where she eats a lot of fruits. And people think fruits are healthy. Of course they are. But for her, having too many of those fruits and sugar makes her go just wacky, out of control. I think she like broke a window by throwing a trophy. Like she just, that's how much, eating right for your body can affect your mental state. So making sure that you're not over sugaring yourself or caffeining yourself is super important in keeping your mind focused.
Definitely. I was curious because this kind of came up. Well, it's this kind of idea. So it's all about self-care. And at the root, what I've been kind of noticing is there's kind of the point is to kind of reduce that stress, right? So like reduce those things that are getting in the way, making sure that the system can like function and making this stuff kind of easy, like whatever it is that is important to us.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the one thing that kind of came up with before with like kind of meditation is that sometimes sometimes some people when they're doing meditation they can kind of be hard on themselves if they're not getting results that they're looking for. So I
Mm-hmm.
was curious how that comes into play around nutrition and exercise because I feel like that's kind of a big topic out there, as far as diet and exercise. It's that like not beating yourself up. And I was curious how you kind of practice that spirit. How do you practice self-compassion around nutrition when like you're maybe not getting the right nutrition or if you like a
Well,
meal that you wouldn't consider so healthy?
I think it's actually pretty easy as long as you have the right mindset. I think it's important to just always look at yourself and what you're doing with compassion and not judgment. Like it's just more like information gathering. So just don't ever judge anything that you're doing. Don't put good and bad labels on it. But let's say that you were doing fantastic with your diet, and then you decided to like eat a whole pizza and a bunch of junk, whatever that is. Actually, pizza itself might not be bad, but let's say you had a whole day of just going off the rails. Well, there's no reason to judge that. Just pay attention to how that made you feel. So later, if you are having trouble with your digestion, or you notice that you're not as clear, or you don't feel good, it could be indigestion, whatever it is, just notice, oh, when I ate this, I felt this. So there's no point in being hard on yourself, but if you pay attention to how you eat and how it made you feel, or whether you exercised or not and how it made you feel, then your unconscious or subconscious mind can start to draw the connections between feeling good and eating good, or feeling not so good and eating, we're not going to call it bad, but eating things that don't make you feel good. So then you will hopefully over time naturally gravitate towards doing the things that make you feel good.
Definitely. Nice. And I feel like we kind of just started shifting. Huh?
Sorry, I apologize. The word just popped into my head the phrase I like to use is looking at everything with curiosity instead of judgment.
Nice. Yeah, no, that's a huge, like a quote, look at everything with curiosity instead of judgment. And it's interesting to kind of do that, just noticing, like you're saying, what's different about how you feel when you're looking at things with curiosity, and noticing how you feel when you're looking at things with judgment. And
Yeah.
there's another way to kind of just begin to make a distinction.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we kind of just shifted into the realm of thoughts. So I guess this is kind of a nice place to kind of talk about how do you practice kind of like mental self-care, mental health. Like just kind of how you showed us this data gathering. What other ways do you practice self-care?
I think a gratitude practice is really helpful to shift your mind into a positive state. So
Nice.
every day before I go to bed, I like to think of 3 things, maybe sometimes 5, just depends, that I'm grateful for, and I try to not make it things that I remember being grateful for before. So
Yeah,
I mean, eventually you end up cycling over, right? But I don't want to just repeat the same things every day. Yes, you can, but my practice is to come up with new things, because it kind of stretches your mind into coming up with more creative things that you're grateful for. And I do this as I'm going to sleep, and often I don't finish the process because maybe I fell asleep, but that's also a good thing.
yeah.
But it's a nice way to put my mind in a positive mental state as I'm going to sleep.
That sounds very, very powerful.
Mhm.
Especially, it reminds me of a friend, you know him, Larry Garrett. He's a very,
Certainly.
yeah, yeah. He always says, how you go to bed is how you wake up, and how you
Yeah.
wake up is how you start your day, and how you start your day is usually how your day goes. And
Right.
that's kind of the thing. And so he always talks about how important it is to do something like that, to like have that gratitude journal before bed. So you're going to bed how you want to be for the next day. You know?
Hmm.
So that's very cool. So gratitude. So when you're doing that, when you're practicing gratitude, what do you notice when you do wake up?
I guess I haven't really noticed a whole lot um, or because I don't really have a lot of an issue with waking up feeling frustrated or blah. Like I don't really have that. Um, I feel like I've been lucky enough to not experience waking up in a bad mood throughout my whole life. And now I have a baby. I guess she's not a baby anymore, but she's a year and a half. And so when I wake up, it's often because she's crying, and I have a task, which is to go handle that. So I don't really have time to just to think about how I feel or whatever. It's just get up and go take care of whatever's happening.
Definitely, definitely. And what I kind of like, it kind of goes back to what you're saying before. It's not so much that you're noticing, because like you're saying, you've so internalized this, right? This is so who you are now. This is so much
Hmm.
like your identity and what you just do, that it's more about noticing the difference when you're not doing it. So I'm
Right.
curious, do you ever notice the difference when you're not doing your gratitude journal?
I haven't really. I
Oh,
guess because especially the last year and a half, I've been
right.
so focused on the baby care that I don't have time to think about that.
For sure. Well, in a big way, it's like she's your gratitude journal,
Yeah, yeah, for
you
sure.
know, because like when you wake up, you're like, she's here, you know, like, so that's huge. Very cool. So yeah, does anything else come to mind as far, because I think those are really powerful. And they just touch the biggest things. It's kind of like that guilt and shame, right? Like by looking with eyes of curiosity instead of judgment, you know, just noticing the difference. And when you have that, there's no shame or guilt anymore. It's just
It's just
information
data.
gathering.
It's just
Right,
more data points. Yeah, more data points to help you get where you want to be. That's all it is. Nothing has to be bad or wrong. It's
right,
just another data point.
right. And what I like is that kind of gets away like how we can be hard on ourselves, right? And then
Hmm.
the other aspect, the gratitude journal, is how, you know, we want to feel. This is what makes us feel good. So in a way, we're letting go of what makes us not feel so good and then shifting over into what does with those two things. I think that's really powerful.
Hmm.
Um, so then I'm curious, I just wanted to kind of touch upon all these and then I know for sake of time, just to kind of like wrap it up and stuff. Because Kira is sleeping. Uh, so for like kind of emotional well-being, I call it sensations at that level because to me emotions happen when we're thinking, when we label them. So that's why I like to try to make that distinction with sensations, but I'm kind of talking about emotional reality. What do you do to practice self-care around that?
um, I don't know. I can't really think of a specific thing that I do to that end. What are some examples? Maybe something you say will trigger my mind to realize I am doing something for it, and I don't even know.
Um, I suppose. Well, there could be, I guess, sensations. It comes back to like, well, I feel like everything you've kind of expressed so far really ends up in that realm. It's about that feeling, you know, like all the things you kind of do is about your sensations, right? It's because you don't want to feel sluggish. You want to feel that energy, you know, you don't want to
Mhm,
feel like like muddled. You want to feel that clearness.
mhm.
So often I feel like like you've already kind of talked about all those things in a way. So that's interesting to consider. Um, I was just thinking for like you were saying also, this is why I like this interview. Because it shows what happens when you do internalize all these things, when you've put up your own roadblocks, whatever they might be, and shift into this kind of information gathering, the data gathering, right? The shifting into gratitude. And when you just
Mhm,
do it, like Shelly already mentioned, step by step, it just goes easier and easier. And so you
mhm.
have the roadblocks, you have that, and then just you can internalize it to where now you're just noticing, like you're noticing how you feel. You're kind of always up here instead of down here. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Just by
certainly.
kind of noticing where you are, you can think back to times where you've been that you want to be back to and what you did to get there. And so it's cool to see you kind of hover up in these kind of areas and then come down like, okay, I want to like this is information. I'm gonna take care of my body, you know, and then you
Mhm.
kind of float back up and you're always kind of there as your focal point for self-care. I don't know if that feels right, but
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
kind of
that
something
feels
I
fair.
notice.
Mhm.
Okay.
I've definitely been having some roadblocks in the exercise realm myself right now because of the things I mentioned before, the weather, COVID. I'm used to like taking out like super long walks outside, and even just that kind of movement is helpful for me. But with my baby, I can't really take her out for an hour walk in 1 degree weather.
Yeah.
Plus, on top of that, I'm pregnant at the moment, and that has been kind of a roller coaster of energy and ability to do things. So I've noticed that my movement has decreased, and I'm getting muscle kind of muscle soreness and just the inertia, just the lack of movement is like wow. I mean, I hit a little wall where I was like, I'm not doing anything all day every day. So I mean, even though normally I feel like I'm on top of things and just in a flow state, of course there are things that mess that up.
Definitely.
So I guess somewhat recently I tried so many different methods. Um, haven't found the perfect one, but for me, I kind of like having a checklist of things that I want to accomplish during the day, and um, it's not a regimented schedule for me, especially with babies. Babies kind of don't really care about your schedule, turns out. So I maybe I'll have 20 minutes of walking on the treadmill, 20 minutes of meditation, 20 minutes of some sort of exercise. So I just check them off, and daily, just put a box by what I did, and work on having fewer holes in the checklist as the week goes on. And it definitely has helped. I mean, it's not 100% where I'd like it to be yet, but I know you talked about some methods earlier of what you do to get yourself back on track. So thought I would share that.
Yeah, no, that's huge. And I appreciate you for sharing that. Like, for so many reasons, it highlights, again, it kind of goes back to like with Kira, with having a baby, like that's life, even if you
Yeah.
don't have a baby, there's always external things happening that are kind of trying to call for your attention. And it's kind of, focusing inside and noticing how you feel about that, and then that's how you
Hmm.
can begin to prioritize. And that's like also too, like showing first how you've internalized so much, but then giving this example of how this happens to all of us, even when, like you
Hmm.
said before, like with the diets, right? That gathering information, even if like you've done that perfect diet for like 30, 60 days, right? 90 days. And then
Hmm.
this one day you cave, it's just information gathering. And so it's cool that you've had that chance to gather information and to know how to get back on track with like a checklist. And so I'm curious, when you have this checklist and you're noticing like, sometimes there's holes and sometimes you're filling in the holes better. How do you practice kind of that self-compassion around that, like the information gathering as far as the checklist?
Again, I just make sure that it's all about curiosity and not judgment. So instead of being like, oh, I did nothing today, or even if I catch myself being like, oh, I did nothing today, then I can look back at the checklist and be like, actually, I didn't do nothing. I did something. Or be like, hey, I have time to, before I go to bed, at least do a meditation. Then I did something. And then have a goal that the next day I'm going to double the checks on the checklist. And the checklist is also extremely simple. Some of the things might take a minute or be part of what I'm already practicing of nutrition, self-care type stuff. So, or like turning my phone off before an hour before bed, or that sort of thing. So there's easy wins on the checklist.
Nice.
So that's one way to help yourself, is to make sure that everything that you're doing for a positive thing for yourself counts, so that you have a lot to be proud of that you did. So yeah, I just make it easy for myself to have little wins, and then work on daily making more wins. And if I didn't, if it didn't go in the right direction one day, be like, oh, okay, cool. Why did that happen? Well, I was really nauseous today, and so I couldn't do this. I'm like, that's okay, like that's part of being pregnant. So it's just yeah, just being kind to yourself and being like, how can I make this better tomorrow? How can I game it tomorrow? Well, I usually get more nauseous by the end of the day. So if I can figure out a way to squeeze it in earlier in the day, then I can get more checks on my checklist. That just those kind of little games of looking at it like, okay, why didn't this happen? Oh, because I waited till the end of the day and it got too late. So then just figure out ways you can game it to get more checks in.
I have to say, thank you so much for sharing that. I'm so glad we recorded this.
Oh, good.
Um, and for so many reasons. I mean, all of it. I mean, because it captured the spirit of that self-compassion, right? Like as you're explaining it, you saw we saw exactly how that looks and feels. How that would be, how we'd be talking to ourselves during all of that. And then even the highlight with the nausea, like it shows you kind of even notice, yeah, like what task can you do? Like maybe meditation helps you when you're feeling that way. So you might put that one off to later and then do like the more physical stuff in the morning. Like you're saying, like it's noticing how you feel and shifting. And I like how you illustrated with a day, like say someone's trying to build habits and right now they don't have much going on. You showed exactly how to start, and also the spirit, like if they start with a bunch of little wins and then they get used to a bunch of little wins, then
Yeah,
it's
it just
easier to
helps the
put in like
mental
a
state.
couple big things, and
Right.
then you get all those wins. And those are important too, because it all comes back to the self-care. And I think that's just something that's often overlooked. So I think that's such a great system. And I'd like to kind of clip it and make it you know?
Mhm.
But yeah, that's very cool. Wow, I'm kind of still mesmerized by it because it's so efficient. And then I also really resonate with the checklist personally. Um, how did you come up with the checklist? Like making that
Um,
physical thing. I like that, like you said, I guess. Sorry, I want to just talk about what I liked was when you're focusing on it. At the end of the day, it's kind of a reminder of what you have done. So sometimes we forget, right? Sometimes we can forget things we've done,
mhm.
but when you have that list, um, I like that you can check in and like kind of remember, like, oh yeah, I did do all this stuff, you know?
Originally, I was a to-do list type person, but that the strict to-do list just wasn't working. I don't know why specifically, but the list would just grow and grow and grow, and the things never get done. So, I mean, I guess this is kind of a to-do list, but I don't know. It's a little bit different. Like I say, I kind of have separated my to-do list. So if I have certain tasks that need to be done, they're not on the checklist, right? So they can be in a separate compartment of daily life things I need to handle. But I kind of just slimmed down the checklist to be more focused on self-care. So I
Okay.
think that helped me separate things that I need to do every day from like things that need to get done, like do your taxes or pay some bills or whatever. So I that way I can focus on self-care as a different, separate, and maybe more important thing than all the other stuff.
Wow. I also like that. That you kind of, like you just said, in a big way, that's how we work inside by splitting those lists and having that one dedicated to self-care. In a way, that's you're communicating to your unconscious that this is different than, bills
Mhm.
and stuff like that. And so there's this different kind of focus you have on it in that way. I noticed the video cut out. Cool. Okay, I just didn't know because last
Okay.
time, right? But I kind of lost my train of thought, and that's totally fine because what that is me putting unnecessary pressure on myself.
For sure.
Yeah, so I do like that. That's so gentle, and then it does focus on how to just start, create, the little wins. I don't know, just all of it. All of it just makes so much sense. And oh, that's what it reminded me of. Is it does sound like a to-do list, but like so like there's this kind of idea that there's like techniques and then there's strategies. And the
Mhm.
techniques is kind of like everything that like I don't know, marketing's trying to sell us, right? It's items, it's things, but often we don't have the strategy. And I think like to-do list is a great technique, but like you were saying, it's just we didn't have a good strategy. I feel like we've all been there. I've been there where it's like very rigid and you feel like you're chained to this list. And then
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's just that you just, or for me, like at the time, like I just beat myself up, like, look at everything I didn't do, you
Mhm.
know? So by learning some new strategies, not in the like I've kind of started seeing how I can improve to-do lists, but I really like everything Shelley shared because it seems like a really updated version of how to do a to-do list. It kind of reminds me of how people struggle with affirmations sometimes. It's like they're trying to use the technique, but they don't have the strategies. Does that make
Mhm.
sense?
For
So I
sure.
really
Yeah.
like this kind of framework over to-do lists because it really shows that we can use them in a new way, in a different way, where we're noticing how we feel instead, right? Like,
Right. And then I'm not crossing it off, right? It's not, self-care is never done. Whereas when I do pay my taxes, it's done for a year. I cross it off, or grocery shopping. Like this is a very like nothing's ever crossed off because it's always a work in process.
that's also nice. Thank you. I love this. And that's why I love these because you never know what's going to come up, like these little
Mhm.
gems. Um, really, I guess that really kind of covers everything. Well,
Awesome.
actually, it depends on you. Is there anything else that comes to mind as far as self-care and like all the stuff that's come up? Anything else
I
you'd
feel
like to
like
share?
there will be more things that pop up in my head after this, but those are the main ones. I guess one thing I barely touched on, but not much, is limiting screens and or social media and or whatever makes sense to a person, to an individual, as should increasingly be part of our self-care strategies lately, because it's so easy to get sucked into looking at Instagram reels for 2 hours a day or whatever it is, or 8 hours a day, or
Yeah.
so strategies to live as much as we can in real life and less on the screens. um, unless if you're being productive on a screen, that's different perhaps than mindless scrolling. But anyway, I feel like that should be a strategy around appropriate screen use. Would benefit most people in terms of self-care, and that's something that I'm working on myself, and I'm not there yet, but I'm making small steps. in the
Sure.
right.
And that's the important part, small steps. And that I like that you brought that up, because that is something I might have talked about it before. If not, that's kind of how I kind of see the roadblocks and how I kind of see some things out there, maybe like half the stuff, or maybe 60-70%, is that it's trying to get us to lose access to our prefrontal cortex. It's trying to get us into a freeze, fight, or flight state where we're reacting to the environment, and then that's what we're becoming. So I like to always talk about, like, yeah, like putting up those roadblocks when we notice, when, yeah, like you're saying, like when we're getting sucked into that, so that we can focus on, number one, how do we feel? How do we feel
Yeah,
when we're in that? And that's what's really important, is if it's not how we want to feel, or it's not kind of where we want to be, now you have that freedom to shift somewhere else. So
absolutely.
yeah, I like, because then, yeah, then you're tapped into your purpose, your identity, and you're bringing that into the environment, living authentically. So
Great.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, and it is. Okay, well, I don't know if, yeah, well, I think this was perfect. This was perfect.
Good, good.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming by. This is
You're
the
welcome.
third self-care convo. You can find us at twitch.tv/the dehypnotist. Chelle, if someone wants to reach out and get a hold of you about any of this, how could they get a hold of you?
Michelle Gillespie Nutrition is my website. So just michellegillespienutrition.com, or if you
Okay.
Google my name as well, the website should come up. I
Okay,
also have an
perfect.
Instagram page, Eat Better with Chelle, but it's mostly baby pictures now. But there should be a link, I think, to my website on there as well.
Okay, cool. And then I'll throw links on the bottom. But
Oh,
yeah,
perfect.
enjoy. Have a good day. Enjoy your time with your daughter.
I will. Have a good
Awesome.
day.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks.